Jorge, we're online.
Hello, hello, Raul.
Hey, muchacho, ¿cómo estás?
I'm really happy to be with you again. Thank you for inviting me again to your podcast. I think we have so much to share with your audience. So hopefully, it's another valuable episode.
Yeah, man. Last time when you spoke to me about climate change, I was just telling everybody that even though I knew climate change is a problem, when you explained it to me, I really understood the whole, gravity of the situation. It's kind of scary to be honest. And I don't want to scare people more, but keeping that in mind and continuing with the trend, I wanted to talk to you about the other crisis. I don't know if it's already a crisis or it's an impending crisis, but we're going to talk about the water scarcity, and that's really scary because it's water. So yeah, man. If you don't mind, can I start asking you questions already?
Absolutely, and just for the record, people, please do not like. I know that we all feel scared about these topics, but this is why we have to talk
Yeah,
with the truth, so we can understand that the time to act is now. So no time to be afraid because the fear paralyzes. It's time to feel motivated to do something about it. So
that's true.
let's start motivated.
Yeah, fear paralysis. You're right, man. That's right. Absolutely. Well, let's go start. Let's talk about why water is a problem. Why is it a problem? We're surrounded by in the earth is majority, it's a 70% water, right? It's all oceans. Why is water a problem, man?
That is a very good question. I guess we got it wrong when we named our own planet because we didn't know, and someone said, "Well, this is planet Earth."
Yeah.
When actually, now looking at it from outside of the planet, from our satellites, and we see all this blue sphere,
Yeah.
we should have called it planet Water. That would be way more accurate because 71% of the planet content is water, is liquid. Actually, the Earth is just a little layer under. There's more magma, which is just like lava, which is
Yeah.
fluid.
Yeah.
So this is a fluid planet. This is not a like an Earth solid planet. So anyway, the name is now on us, planet Earth. But it really water accounts for 2/3 of it, right? 71%. And very interestingly, something that the audience need to understand is that the planet will never ever run out of water.
Okay.
There is not such thing as lack of water because we have 326 million trillions of liters of water in the planet. And those are exactly the same from the beginning of the existence of water to till the day of today. So to put it in perspective, the water that the dinosaurs were drinking is the water that we drink, and is a water that in 1 million years, whoever is alive is going to be drinking, right? So there's not a problem of we're running out of water. That is not the issue. The issue is the access to the water that we can use as humans,
Okay.
right? So from the 100% of water in this planet, 97% is too salty. This is pretty much the oceans. From the other 3%, 2% is iced. It is frozen in the caps. So that leaves us with less than 1% of fresh water available for human consumption. And this less than 1% is the lakes, the rivers, and the underground water. Okay? So it is very important to understand that even if we have plenty of water, most of the water is not accessible to us,
Oh,
right? So it is very important to have this in mind because when you think about it, then the fact that there's plenty does not mean that you should waste it,
yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
this is the trend that we have in our minds is like, oh, if there is plenty, I can see a lot of water, then I should do whatever I want with it. And it is not like that. So just to framework the conversation around that. And also the other reason because we should care about water. It's not only because it's really scarce for our own consumption and well-being. It is also because it's a very magical uh, composition. I don't know. It's an element that you will. It's just out of this world. Ironically, there's no water out of this world that we know, but it is really interesting how water behaves. It's like nothing else in this planet or universe known by us. So one of those things is, for example, that water can present itself in three different states of the matter. So it can be solid, it can be liquid, and it can be a gas.
Correct. Yeah.
And there are other things that do also the same thing, but water is the only one that can float in a solid state when it is in its own element in a liquid.
You're right.
So
Like the icebergs.
Exactly, like the icebergs.
Yeah.
But if you melt gold and you make it liquid, and then you have a bar of gold and you drop it into the liquid gold, it will sink.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
An element in different states, but it will not float. Water is the only one that can change the structure chemically and get floating on its own element, which is impressive.
That is.
Also, we're obsessed with water as humans, not only because it's a vital liquid, but also because we want to solve everything with water. Probably you haven't noticed it, but believe me, we try to solve everything with water. If you have a drop of mustard on your shirt, what do?
Yeah, you take some, dab it with some, like a wet cloth, or put some water there and try to, rub it
try
off.
to put some water there to correct it, right? If you are too hot, what do?
Yeah, splash some water on your face, drink some water. Similar, yeah.
If you're sick, what do?
If you're sick, yeah, definitely water, yeah. Everything, water is the solution, man. Water is life. Your body is water, mostly.
We are bags of water walking around around the earth.
That's why when there's if there's a change in lunar activity, they say people's moods change, because, like, if the moon, the gravity of the moon can move tides in the sea, it can also have an effect on your body, because your body is water. So that's why people have horoscopes based on the lunar activity, and their behavior changes. And at least in India, especially, people wear those rings and stuff. It is to counter the activity of moon's gravity on your behavior, because of gravity. So water is everything. We are water, like you said. We are water.
We are water.
Yeah.
And water is vital for all life forms on Earth. So this is an incredible. It's just H2O. It's just two elements, hydrogen and oxygen.
Correct.
But this arrangement and composition makes water so special. So just by the sake of knowing that it's a very incredible, magical, precious element, it's worth looking after it and venerate it, like many other I guess religions or spirituality capabilities. It is attributed to water. For example, in Africa, they have and Afro-Caribbean countries, like Cuba, or influences of Africa in Brazil, they have all these gods like Yamaya, that it's also a spiritual attribute to water, where water is perceived as a female. And she will wash out your problems, she will revitalize you. Like, everything gets better when it's next to water, right? So very, very interesting, all these concepts around water for our well-being.
In India, we worship water too. In India, I don't know if it's a Hindu thing, but Lord Shiva has the Ganges River apparently in his head, tied up in a knot. And the rivers in India, especially the Ganges, they are very, very holy, and people pray to the river. We pray to in English it's Ganges, but in Hindi it's Ganga. So we pray to Ganga, and to wash away your sins, you go and take a dip in the Ganga, there's actually, I mean, this is mythology, yes, but there's a lot of science to it too. We can do another podcast on the science behind most religions and beliefs in the world another time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, but like you said, water is worshipped everywhere, and there's a good reason for it because it is vital to survival.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
So, are we in a water crisis or
yeah.
not?
Are we in a crisis? Are we in a crisis right now, or are we? Is it an impending crisis, or are we already there? What's happening, and why is it happening?
So, yes and no.
Okay,
Yes, in the sense that we are in a crisis because we're losing the capability to access the water as we need it. And no, because we already saw and explored that the water is not going anywhere. It's just not accessible to us.
right.
So there's not a crisis in the sense of lack of water, but there is a crisis in the sense of the access to safe, clean water that
Yeah.
we can drink and use. So let me give you some numbers about this. So
Can I ask you one question before you start? Sorry.
sure,
You said we are not in a crisis because right now the crisis is the access to water. So, do we have enough fresh water? Like you said, only 2% of the water is usable to drink. Everything else is
1%, less than 1%, it's available to us.
at the moment.
2%, it's yes. Um, it's trapped in the caps, in the ice caps. So
Okay.
it's from
Yeah.
mountains, glaciers. We don't really use it. And the other one, 97%, it is sold to the oceans.
So the 1% that is available in the world is actually enough for the population. It's just that there's not enough access to the 1%. Is that right? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Cool.
Now, let me bring some light into this so you can determine yourself, guys, everyone who's hearing us, if this is a crisis or not.
Yeah.
Okay? So, for example, more than 50% of the human population, we're talking about 7.5 billions roughly, um, are experiencing some kind of water scarcity for at least 1 month during the year.
Okay.
That's more than half of the population. So that means that for 1 month, you are struggling to access water,
That's crazy,
which
right?
is, how many days can you be without water?
This is drinking
Before
water. We're talking about drinking water.
we're talking about just water, not even drinkable, just access to water to shower yourself, to drink it, to cook, to like all this. We need water for everything,
Yeah, yeah.
even to produce the goods that we consume,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So without water, there's no cooking, there's no cleaning, there's no sanitation, there's no drinking. There's so just access to water, not precisely to drink or everything. So
Wow.
if you are looking out access to water that you can use for 1 month, you're going crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
And
right? How many days
you said
can you
50%
stay
of
without a
the
shower?
population? Did you say 50% of the population?
Over 50%.
Wow. That's nuts. I didn't know it was that bad.
That miss out in having access to water for, in average, 1 month per year.
Yeah.
So that is talking to you that there's not enough access for people to have water available every day,
Yeah.
right? So the other problem, it is the distribution, right? So we have a problem of distribution because we have several elements. One is geography. Like there are countries that just naturally were, surrounded by water, and we're talking about fresh water.
Yeah.
But there are other ones that are locked apart from water, especially Central Africa. All those countries, they have no water around, not under the ground, not in the ocean. They're locked in an area geographically where it's so hard because now they are being blackmailed by the other countries to provide them water with, right?
Yeah.
And this is an issue as well with rivers or that are crossing front borders. Probably the best example is Egypt, where it's one of the most militarized dams in the world. That river, it's just vital for the development and the survival of the people.
Everything
So
started there, right? Even so, I think it's Sudan which shares the Nile with Egypt, And actually, if you look at the Egyptian civilization, what you call today the Egyptian civilization, it's divided. It was divided into Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Upper Egypt was not, even though Sudan is south of Egypt. Upper Egypt was actually Sudan. It started with Sudan. There are more pyramids in Sudan than there are in Egypt. Fun fact. But
Yes.
it goes from there to here. So I think the fight for water over the Nile is between Egypt and Sudan, right?
You cannot fly above the Nile.
Oh, is it?
On Egypt territory. They will take you down.
Oh, really? I never knew. I've never flown over Egypt. So next time I'm in
Well,
Egypt, I'll keep that in mind, Jorge. Thanks.
at least that's what they told me when I was
Yeah,
in
maybe
Egypt.
true, maybe true, man. I'm just saying, next time I'm there, I'll not fly over the Nile. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, so it is that important, right?
Yeah,
Water, no development. No water, no life.
exactly.
It's
Exactly.
like that, right? So the other one is infrastructure. Even if you have access to water underground, you don't have the infrastructure to access to it.
Yeah,
Many people, actually do not have tap water.
yeah, yeah. I think in India, lots of
And
places don't have access to tap water. It's a
you know,
tube well in the villages. They have to pump water in the morning in buckets and bring it
exactly.
to their house. Yeah,
You have to go to the well, you have to pump it, you have to do something to actually access the water. In many parts of the world, we're so used to just open the tap. And even new generations, they are totally distracted.
yeah,
They don't understand or they don't care about the process.
yeah,
So you ask a kid nowadays where the water comes from, they will tell you from the tap.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, where milk and food comes from the fridge.
yeah,
Where electricity comes from, from the switch.
yeah,
And like that, we forget about the process.
yeah,
Just open the tap and you have water running. That's like a miracle. You're
yeah.
gonna cry happiness
Yeah,
when you missed that access to water and finally you just open a tap and it comes out.
yeah.
You cry of happiness. It's so important. So infrastructure is another big issue. Many countries do not have the prioritization.
Yeah.
It's not a priority for the country to invest in infrastructure, or they actually just can't afford it, right? Or the underground water is totally depleted. Like it's a race to the bottom, and every time it takes longer and longer and longer to find some water until, it took thousands, if not millions of years for that water to penetrate and be stored underneath the soil. And we're just pumping it out so quickly that we don't give it time to replenish. So we're not sustainable in the way we're consuming water.
I think
Basically,
adding to what you said about how water is so inaccessible and pumping out water, just another little fact. You know, Muammar Gaddafi, the dictator of Libya, who was killed in the recent past. Libya is a land. Is it no? Libya is not landlocked, but Libya is mostly a desert state, right? So they had water crisis all throughout before Gaddafi came into power, and because it's a desert. But now they had a lot of oil money, so they said, "All right." Gaddafi said, let's put an end to this crisis." So one of the largest feats of human engineering in the modern era is this: they dug deep into the earth. There was a Swiss engineering firm that they hired. I don't know how deep they dug, but it was. I mean, it's the deepest human beings have ever dug, apparently. And they went down to I won't say the core, but they went really, really deep down into the desert and they found water and they brought the water back up and they made canals with that and they started farming in the desert. So water is so difficult to find these. I mean, it's always been very, like you said, water is available. It's just the access which makes it so difficult. And we use
once
it
you find it,
irresponsibly. I mean, I have
once you,
struggled.
once you find it, you have to ask yourself how long this is gonna last.
Yeah, yeah.
Forever. Any groundwater just have certain time before it runs out. So the third thing that is an issue with the distribution is population.
That's true. Yeah.
We have countries, just to give you a comparison, right? for example, let's say, what is the difference between Kuwait, that is one of the most poor countries when it comes to water access.
Which one are you saying?
Kuwait.
Kuwait, like the Middle East?
Yeah, sorry, what is the right pronunciation?
Kuwait.
Kuwait.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they are a water poor country.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
There's very limited access to water.
Okay.
And the compared to, Canada, that has plenty of water and a low population, the ratio between Kuwait and Canada per capita, it is not a few times more. It is not tens more. It's not hundreds more. It's not thousands more. It is actually 10,000 times more.
Wow.
Available per capita.
Wow.
Because a lot of water, low population density, therefore, you have plenty of opportunities. Whereas Kuwait,
yeah, that's right.
It's low dense, it's high dense in population and has no water. So the ratio or the reality for the population is that far away, 10,000 times.
Wow. And you got to understand, Kuwait is one of the richest countries in the world. And even one of the richest countries in the world can't find a solution to bring water to them. I go to Kuwait a lot. And I swim in swimming pools over there. So next time I'm going to think twice about that. Kuwait. Wow. That's amazing. Wow. And Kuwait is a small island, actually. It's a little speck of dust in the middle of the Persian Gulf. And it's actually a small island. So it's surrounded by water, actually. But still doesn't have access to drinking water or clean water, like you said, or usable. What do you call it? Fresh water?
Yes, access to or usable or access to fresh water.
Yeah.
We will talk about that in a moment about how countries like Kuwait or United Emirates can solve their issues, right? Because they have, otherwise they wouldn't be on the map right now.
Yeah.
But just to give you a perception of how depleted the underground water is, there are 37. We know there are, at least as far as we know, right? Maybe there are, but from the 37 major underground reserves, 21 are exploited to a point of not return.
Yeah.
So irreversibly emptied because we're just pumping them so constantly at big scale, and they cannot replenish themselves with rainwater. So, 37, you are already out of 21. Doesn't look good.
That does not look good, my friend. Yeah. Is it because of the population that's the problem? Or is it how we use it?
The population keeps expanding, so there's so more people for the same resources that is not expanding. All right.
Yeah.
So you come to a collapse. There's only so much that you can sustain in that way. And the other one is exactly how we use water.
Yeah.
For example, the human body, it requires 2 liters of drinking water per day to be functioning properly, right?
Right.
But on average, a person in the world consumes 3,000 liters per day.
3,000 liters
per day, in average.
The whole world together.
Yes. No, like per capita, per person.
So 3,000 per day, 3,000 ml, you mean? So 3 liters.
So every new person in this planet, like roughly is 250,000 new people sitting today at the table that were not there the night before.
Yeah.
This is the pace of how humanity keeps increasing population, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then, in average, will consume about 3,000 liters per day.
Per day, but this is like including your shower, your daily grind.
Everything.
3,000 liters, you said? Per day? How?
Per day.
Doing what? Other than drinking water, you're showering. What else are you doing?
Exactly. And this is where we can introduce the concept of water footprint.
Yeah, it's it. Water footprint. Yeah.
So everything we consume had to include water at some point,
Okay.
right? So the food you eat, it
Yeah.
is mainly made of water, and to produce it, you have to, irrigate the fields, and then when you transport things, water is involved, and then when you do refrigeration, gases and water is involved, and when you want to create materials, water is involved. Your house has a big water footprint. We talked last time about a carbon footprint.
Yeah.
Well, water is another type of footprint. It's a resource that we keep using to maintain our lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So this is why, in the overall, if you want to talk about it, if you want to use, let's talk about water consumption. So what exactly takes most of the water available for humans? Well, you can stop, brushing your teeth, or not letting the tap running when you wash your hands and all this, because it's something that is under your control. But all that only accounts for 8% of the water consumption,
Okay.
right? From that 1% we're talking, right? So from that 1% available for humans, if that's 100%,
Yeah.
8% would be the proportion for householding, activities. Then factories use 22% to create your clothes, your furniture, your houses, your computers, mobile phones, all these kind of things. And then agriculture takes the 70%.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Ourselves, it's a race to usage of water available to us.
Wow. Now, when you
So
say race, I want to know about, I've been reading about a few things. So I don't know where, don't quote me on this, but I've been told by 2030, India is going to be a water dependent nation. That sounds very, very terrifying to me. Then I've been told that I know for a fact last year or 2 years ago, South Africa was in a water crisis. That so much so that I think Cape Town, I have a friend there, she was telling me Cape Town is down to 5 liters of water per day per person. 5 liters? That's ridiculous. I don't know how much you use for a shower, but I think people use more than 5 liters for one shower. So I've heard this word before, day zero. That's where I read about it. Can you explain to me what day zero is? Can you tell us what are the crisis regions in the world? What are the places which are most susceptible right now?
yeah, absolutely. The day zero is a concept trying to determine the day when we actually run out of water in a location.
Okay.
So for South Africa, the day zero was mainly in the main city that uses most of the water, that is Cape York, and basically they were counting down the days. So there's just limited resources of water. We are all using this amount of water per capita, or in the industry or agriculture. So we know how many days we have left after there's nothing left.
Shit. You mean nothing, like zero? Absolutely nothing
Like
left?
zero.
Like you gotta
Yeah, like
import water?
exactly. Like we have no more. So you can imagine how stressful that is. And it was not until then, until they were actually counting to day zero, that they got this, voluntarily consciousness of the importance of water. And because they took action on efficiency measures, they were able to delay that day to day zero. Everyone was counting the world like, oh my God, those guys are going down. They only have
Yeah,
1 month. By this day, on this month, that's it. No more water available.
that's scary.
And everyone trying to put policies in place and make it more efficient, and people got conscious, and because those actions, they actually were saying, well, now the day zero is not in the middle of the month, it's actually at the end of the month. And then as they keep going, they change the date farther back in time, because they were actually looking after it, they were caring about it. And I don't know what is with humans that we need to wait until moments of life or death to
Yeah.
actually think about it.
That's what we spoke
So
about last time. We said, right? Crisis brings humanity together. Exactly what it is.
exactly. So
Speaking of crisis bringing humanity together, and how you said we might have to import water. Every now and then you read a little article in the newspaper about somebody who comes back from time travel guy or whatever. So there was this article. I don't know where I read it, and I don't know if it's true or credible, but nonetheless, it's a fun story. Um, Somebody came back from time into a bar. Let's say I think it was Australia, but I'm going to say United States. Okay, like a bar in the middle of nowhere, like a dive bar, country down bar, and he gets into the bar and goes and gets a beer or whatever, and he looks at the person behind the bar and tells the bartender, "Hey, what year are we in?" Right? So he says, "We're in 2018." So that makes real zero sense. If I told you we were in year 1652, you wouldn't know the difference between 52 and 53 or 54. You need something to define that era. So he's like, "Oh, are we still fighting over oil, or have we started fighting over water?" you know so water is the new oil. If most of the big investors in the United States and the world, those guys who were investing in oil once upon a time, they're all investing the stock in water stocks now. It's so
absolutely,
scary.
absolutely. Actually, this is why if we're looking at a graph and we see how we consume water from 1990 to 2010, we will see that in that century,
Yeah,
well, it was over a century, but like
yeah,
in pretty much the last 100 years,
yeah.
our water consumption went up 7x.
Wow.
So from the beginning of the century, of last century, to the to year 2000, like that exponential curve started actually in 1950. But
Yeah,
when we call, and you see carbon emissions is the same thing, and it
yeah.
was all the industrial revolution.
Wow. Yeah, I was gonna say, is it because of the industrial revolution? Yeah, that's the reason, right?
Absolutely. So we won many, many battles with, sanitation, having access to, potable water. The mortality rate, decreased because water is heavily related to death. Not only because drinking water, but also sanitation.
Yeah,
Just to avoid the area, and we were living longer. We were not dying so early. And all of this obviously keeps creating pressures in consumption in general. Food, water
yeah,
directly, carbon emissions, woods, homes, So the fact that we have done better and better in living longer and not dying
yeah,
so quick is just big pressure to the system that is not multiplying at the pace that humans keep multiplying. And we want to ensure that every single human being has everything required in life,
yeah,
even if they do not appreciate it,
yeah,
Uh, you have your own room, you have your bed, you have food on the table, you have a
yeah,
shower,
yeah.
and you're
Um,
satisfied. Oh, I'm such a failure in life. Like,
don't get me on. Don't get me started on that, buddy. Don't get me started on that right now. I got it. How to be? You only can become grateful for what you have once you've lost all of it, and you're like, what? Oh man, I used to be this. My one of my eyes is not the best. I'm like, oh, I used to see so well from that eye. I never really just took it for granted. You know what I mean? So I know exactly what you mean. So let's hope we don't have to wait for so long to be grateful for water, man. Because without water, we're all dead. We're all. It's not just human beings which are dead, right? Everybody's dead. No crops, no food, no animals. I think Russia should be doing well, right? They got Lake Baikal. I think that's the largest freshwater lake in the world.
the biggest reservoirs of water in the world are Russia, Canada, and Brazil.
Brazil?
So
How Brazil? Is it
yes,
the Amazon or
if you look into a map,
yeah?
you can see how the rivers are just like the veins, and they're all over Brazil.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Big, big, long, white rivers, like just blood, blue gold, just
Yeah,
going through.
I like
And
that.
this is
I
And
like
this is because
it.
the forest. So vegetation is highly linked into water precipitation. So, humidity is another important factor for our well-being and all the other things,
Yeah,
that we rely on, the biodiversity. So, when we lose the forest in the cities and we change a forest for another neighborhood, or we change a trees in the cities for another pole for electricity, or, it's blocking my view, or whatever it may be, we are actually locking ourselves away from more water precipitation. So we're actually messing up with the cycle of water to actually literally have this vital liquid that is like gold melted
yeah,
over our heads, like literally rains from the sky.
yeah, exactly.
This is that is the most important element that probably you have in your life, and literally falls from the sky. And you say, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna cut down this tree.
Yeah, I know, man. It's like, yeah, it's unbelievable. It's like a miracle that it falls. Like you said, you don't have to do anything about it. It's just made by itself. It's gold falling from the sky, and you still find a way to mess it up. It's pretty
Yeah.
uncanny. Yeah,
So this is why, because all these issues, all these numbers, what can I tell you about, people? People are suffering. People who have no access to water suffer of disease. Actually, there's a very good reason why most of the cities around the world develop next to water.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
rivers. It was obvious.
Like you
So
said, I
now,
think you were telling me this the war in Syria started because of water. I know this for a fact that in the desert, if you had a well and you tried to go and draw water from another well back in the day, when you were like in the days of the Bedouins before the oil was discovered, you were gonna get shot. If you've seen the movie, one of my favorite movies of all time is a movie called Lawrence of Arabia. I don't know if you've seen it. If you've not,
no, I haven't.
oh, you must see it, my friend. Peter O'Toole. It's a
I
very old
will.
one. And Omar Sharif, the Egyptian actor. And one of the most iconic scenes where Omar Sharif comes is they're in the desert, and this is a true story, by the way. And Mr. Lawrence is with his guide in the desert, and they find a well in the desert, and they open it. It's covered, of course, and they open it up, and they're trying to draw water. And his guide is, and before he can draw the water, somebody just shoots that guy, and from afar you see Omar Sharif coming back on his camel. He said, "That is my well. Nobody touches my well." You know what I mean? So, like you said, everything is built around water. Of course, the India. If you see the names of the civilizations, like in India, I think. Okay, I'm not going to say this because I'm Indian. I'm just saying this on pure facts that are now out. The Indus Valley civilization, which is uh, yeah, Indus Valley civilization, if you heard of it, is basically India's old civilization. Is known to be one of the oldest civilizations in the world. About there's a city called Dwarka. Okay, there's a city called Dwarka. Dwarka is in Hindu mythology. If you heard of Lord Krishna, it is his home. Okay, and even in Hindu mythology, his home is underwater. So off the western coast of India, with the state is called Gujarat, but it's called Cambay, that area. They have actually discovered a city underwater. Okay, and carbon dating, and it's not just a city, it's a very complex city, large city, and it went underwater because of the shifting of the tectonic plates and the movement of away from Pangea. So it is underwater, and carbon dating has explained that that city is 8,500 years old. That city is 8,500 years old. So to put it into reference, it is how old the Egyptian civilization and the pyramids are for us today. If you were an Egyptian during the Egyptian civilization, that city would be as old as the Egyptian civilization is to you today. You understand?
Wow.
Yeah. My point is, even Egyptian civilization was built on water. There is evidence that the Sphinx and the pyramids and everything, that area, which is supposed is a desert now, was actually not desert. It had water because there's evidence of water erosion around the Sphinx as well. So everything in the
Yeah,
world is built around water. And obviously, I mean, that's the life source. You can live without food, you can't live without water, right?
exactly. There's a very good phrase from the United Nations that I really love, and says like, "No one has died from love,
No one
but
has? No one has?
no one has died because of love,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
no one can survive without water."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true. That's true. Yeah. Love can take a half
So,
of water.
exactly. So I it's like, providing access to water. It's an act of love.
Yeah,
From
true.
So this is why, there's a big lesson in what you were saying just before. Those civilizations who were able to manage water, to retain water, and have a relationship with it thrived. Those who didn't failed. And it was the same thing with the Aztecs and the Mayans and Egyptians and many other civilizations that couldn't thrive anymore because they exploited their resources. So there's a
Yeah.
big lesson. It has happened in the past,
Oh, yeah.
and it's going to happen again
It's gonna happen
if we
again.
don't.
You're right.
So, with that in mind, the United Nations in 2010,
Yeah.
look what I'm saying, just like 12 years ago,
Yeah.
sorry,
10 years ago.
10 years ago, um, they just declared human access to safe and clean water a human right.
Ah, well done. Thank God.
So, but this is the irony. When water now for 10 years has been a human right, in those 10 years, we are still buying bottled water.
Yeah, I know. I do it too, man. What do I do? I mean, at least I buy one bottle. When I travel, I buy one bottle, and then I keep that bottle and I keep replenishing that bottle.
Well, this is crazy, right? Because if access to safe water is a human right, and
Yeah.
this is not respected. How can they sell water to us? So capital keeps finding ways in which they create a problem because they put mines and they pollute rivers, or they extract all the underground water, just beer or wine or whatever they may need for you to consume. So they don't need the government doesn't give priority to the people, it doesn't give priority to the environment, and it is sold for big bucks to big companies to produce what we consume because we demand it in high proportions: alcohol, beers,
Yeah.
coffee. All this has a big water footprint. I'm going to give you some details in a moment, but what I'm trying to say is like every time that you buy bottled water,
Yeah.
it's like you're saying, I don't want the human right. Thank you. I prefer to pay for it.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm not paying for the water because there's so many studies that prove that the quality of the water in a bottled water is not better than just tap water
Really?
sometimes.
Really? Tap
Yes,
water? Wow.
yes. So maybe not in India,
Yeah.
but I don't know India very well, but many countries probably is not the best case of tap water. But what I'm trying to say is like, don't trust bottled water. It does not always telling you what they tell you they're selling you. What you're doing is just to produce more water going into create plastic to have a bottle of water and pay 10,000 times more the real value of it because you think you're drinking safe water that you're
Yeah.
actually not. And you're saying, I don't want my human right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I want to. It's like, would you imagine being paying for air to breathe?
I hope not. I don't want to imagine it, but considering what capitalism does, I might have to start thinking. In Delhi right now, the air, you would notice the air quality index is so bad. I don't know what the index is called and what numbers is, but I think 200 is supposed to be very dangerous and 250 is supposed to be hazardous. Delhi's at 600. It's like walking around in a concentration camp or in a
Oh my
gas.
God.
So, like you said, water companies don't sell water; they sell bottles, right? They sell plastic bottles. Basically, water is supposed to be free. I think there might come a time where I might have to buy air, like put a gas cylinder on my back and walk around with air because the air outside is so polluted.
That is already happening. And you know who's selling it? Yes,
That's happening? You're joking.
that is happening.
What?
No. You know who's buying it?
No?
China. You know who's selling it?
I don't know.
Canada.
They're selling it. You're joking, huh?
They're selling bottles of fresh air from the Alps of, well, it's not an Alps, but the forest of Canada,
Yeah.
shipped into China for the very polluted cities so they can have some fresh air for health purposes.
So what?
So
People
there's,
just walk around with like a gas, like a scuba tank of of air and walk around with that?
well, it's a smaller tank. It's
Yeah.
not as big as that one,
Yeah.
but you can buy it and have the luxury of breathing some fresh air without having to leave your city.
This is horrible.
And this is the power and the risk of leaving solutions to the market,
Yeah.
right? So aggressive capitalism does not respect human rights. It doesn't care who goes down or who goes, benefited from all these, as far as they can do money. So we should not allow, as citizens of the world, for this to happen. I feel sorry for cities like Mexico City or New Delhi or Hong Kong. They actually have to start doing these kind of desperate measures where they're selling their human rights to someone who has not fucked up that high.
Yeah.
And we need
Yeah.
to push our governments and our companies to say you must be responsible and accountable for what you're selling. Your production and your value chain must be compatible with sustainable development. Otherwise, we don't want it. We should stop buying all these things. And on that mind frame, let me tell you the water footprint of some elements to see how actually we contribute to water consumption way beyond brushing our teeth, washing our hands, and having a shower or going to the toilet.
Yeah.
So, for example, brushing your teeth or washing your hands, normally that will take like 1 gallon of water. That is like 3.5 liters, 2.7 liters of water.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's a lot because many people do not
tap and they keep. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So it shouldn't take more than. Actually, I'm going to tell you something for all those who, think that they mastered the process of brushing their teeth. If you are the type of person that has to wet the brush before putting the toothpaste and actually brush your teeth, you've been brainwashed. Like, that actually is not the way it should be done.
Really?
It does make a difference to wet your brush or not before you put the paste and start brushing your teeth.
Okay.
The toothpaste actually should be abrasive, so it should create friction on your teeth. So when you wear it, you're just doing a disservice to yourself. And ask a dentist about that. Don't believe me? Ask a dentist about it. But anyway, that's 3.5 liters, right, in average. A toilet, when you flush the toilet, it's 10 liters.
How many?
10 liters.
Oh.
So here's a very funny. Sometimes I think we should disappear from the face of Earth or probably not be called ourselves intelligent species, because if you are shitting on the vital liquid at 10 liters flush, you are an asshole.
You told me this last time.
Yeah. So,
you know about this?
Who never heard this before, I think that's a very good evidence that we're not as smart as we think we are.
Let me tell you a joke. Just to save money, just to save water for flushing. Somebody had once when I used to live in the States, somebody had said this because they had a plumbing problem, not because they want to save water, just had a plumbing problem. So they said, Rahul, in this house, if it's yellow, we let it mellow. If it's brown, we flush it down. So
of all kind of perceptions there. Well, let me go now to an interesting bit. Okay, if you think 3.5 liters or 5 liters, or sorry, 10 liters in a flush is a lot, let me tell you, there's 34 liters involved in producing a soda bottle.
Okay.
Every time you drink a soda, you're actually consuming 34 liters. Wow. Not because of the liquid that you have in the soda, but because everything involved for you to have that soda at your disposition, right? Now, do you think 34 liters is a lot for a drink?
Yeah.
Coffee takes 130 liters.
How?
1 cup of coffee. You know how much water coffee consumes?
The plant. Okay, okay, okay.
You want coffee, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
this is a real footprint
Wow,
of doing everything necessary for you to have a cup of coffee.
wow.
Every cup of coffee is 130 liters.
Can I ask you a silly question? Is it the same for tea?
Yes? I actually don't know. I think it will be less.
Based on the plant, I'm guessing, but I'm sure maybe it's more.
Exactly.
Maybe it takes more.
Maybe some teas and some others do not, but it is worth looking on the internet. I'm sure you will find answers.
I will.
It's just be conscious of the water footprint. And this is, again, an invisible thing that we don't see, just like a carbon footprint. You see the product, but you don't see the process and what is involved in the resources for you to have that product in your hands, right? A banana, 160 liters, right? Just one banana. Now let's go for big things, all right?
This is not big.
Cotton is insane. You know, your t-shirt made out of cotton, my t-shirt made out of cotton. For one t-shirt, it takes 2.5, or I would say 2,500 liters.
Wow.
2,500 liters for you to have a t-shirt made out of cotton, right? Then, you know, when you think about this and you think about fast fashion,
Yeah.
how you have to change your clothes, your wardrobe every year or every 6 months or every season, it's just killing me alive. Just kill me already. You
You
know,
talk about
like,
every season. I have friends who don't wear the same clothes ever again. They just wear it once, so one time only.
you know, we're talking just about the world footprint, not the carbon footprint, but there's so many other, you know, footprints. Now let me give you another one. Bread.
Okay.
Bread is 1,600 liters per loaf of bread. Cheese, 5,000 liters.
Shit. Wow. Cheese is
And
5,000 because of the milk, and what else? Where? How does milk?
Yeah, because of the cows that produce milk,
Right.
and obviously, like, let's say, for example, cows eat a lot of alfalfa, right? And many things and seeds and all these that we feed, but actually we produce more food to feed animals than to eat the animal that we actually consume ourselves directly. So, you know,
That's
just 510 liters just to produce alfalfa for a cow to just eat it immediately, and then you have to water the cow, you have to give them more seeds and more things, and then milk the cow, and then dilute it into water because they don't give us pure milk, and for us to go and buy pretty much water painted white. You know, it's not even milk anymore. So there.
That's true.
But nothing consumes more water in the food industry than meat, especially beef.
Really?
And yes, it takes a lot. One hamburger is like 2,500 liters of water just in one hamburger because of the bread and, you know, all the process into giving you that hamburger.
It's got the beef, it's got the cheese, it's got the bread all together. That's a huge footprint right there. Water footprint.
It's a huge footprint.
You know, we gotta learn these things in school, man. I wonder if they're teaching all this because I had no idea water was even scarce when we were in school.
Only if you go to the, you know, ecological side of the things. Like if you are studying ecology, if you are studying biology, and not even biology, if you're studying probably, you know, sustainability. I'm sure now this is, you know, part of the conversation in I guess from primary, secondary school. But definitely, you know, many people going even into universities, just specializing themselves in certain field, humanities or this, or they don't even, you know about this, or they will know it in a different way. Because let me tell you something: this is not only related to the environment. Water is not just an environmental issue. We already saw that it's a political issue, and it is a conflict issue. As the world scares more and more, there's more stress in the population. There's more conflict between civil society and government, and then we end up in wars like the one in Syria. we end militarizing and looking after the resource like in Egypt. And we have same issues all over the world where, basically you need to provide the best service for your population. If not, you are considered a failed state. Like shit is going to happen, right? So let me tell you as well, this is an issue socially about gender inequality.
All right.
If there is a lesson about sustainability, is that everything is interlinked and it is interdependent. Every time that you move in my sustainable urban house, I have on the top of the big mural where I actually have the lake on which Mexico City was built.
Okay.
When the Aztecs found the signal of their gods, and they said, like, this is where we're going to settle after thousands of years of being being nomads, they found the eagle standing on a cactus eating a snake, and that was a signal from Quetzalcoatl to say, that's where you're going to build your city. The issue was that the freaking eagle was standing on the cactus, and the cactus was in a little island in the middle of the lake. So there was a technical problem there. And they started to build all these like beds, like pretty much like the first probably aquaculture system, where they were actually building up dirt on those beds and creating crops and all that. And now it's Mexico City, right? Actually, Mexico City is sinking.
Really?
Sinking, yes, because underneath the city there's water, another water for consumption. Let me just give you perspective a little bit more on that. Cape Town was risking 4 million people when they were talking about the day zero, right? Melbourne is another city with water issues here in Australia. There's 5 million people in there. It's a big city.
Yeah.
Mexico City is 22 million people.
Yikes. Yeah.
Right? So they're sinking in some places of Mexico City even 9 inches a year.
Shut up. That's a lot.
No. You can go look it up. You go into churches and all that, and they're already inclined.
No way.
Other parts of buildings are just like you can see them. They're like submerging. Like you can see the waves just on the ground.
Wow. Unbelievable.
It's because the hydrological pressure is not there anymore. Because you're pumping the water, you have air. It's not the same support as water. Sinks, and all the buildings. 22 million people.
Yeah, man.
That's not that much impressive because you guys have more than 1
billion. No, 22, dude. No, 22 million it's bigger than Mumbai. I think Mexico City at one point in time was the biggest city in the world. I think it's still in the top 5, if it's not number 1.
It was, but now Tokyo is number 1.
Tokyo?
30 million people.
Wow. There's another city in China called Chongqing, which I always pronounce it wrong. And it's actually like an area, okay, and it's got 50 million people. Have you seen that very famous photograph of this one train passing through a building in China? Like there's a skyscraper, and there are a few skyscrapers, and the train line passes through the buildings. Do you know what I mean? And that is the same city. I think it's called Chongqing, but don't quote me on how to pronounce it. But it's a large.
I never heard that. It's crazy.
Metropolitan area. But I know for a fact that Mexico City for the longest time was the biggest city in the world. I think Tokyo, like you said, Tokyo by itself must be the biggest city. And I remember going to Tokyo, man. It is huge. And I'm coming from Mumbai, and I was like, wow, this is taking a while to get anywhere. It's incredible.
Yeah. So this is a big problem because cities have the bad habit of wasting a lot of water, not only because the ignorance of its population, but also because the infrastructure is very bad, right? So for example, I don't know how it is in other cities, but in Mexico City, about half of the water network have leakages.
Oh, God.
So we lose 50% of the water that we treat and we send to people just because the network is full.
Did you say 50%?
50%.
Ouch. Come on, man. Yeah, that's
That
wrong.
hurts. After hearing all these statistics, the
Yeah,
fact that is like, really you're gonna let go whatever we have available to us, like it's insane.
it is
But
incredible.
the government, people in their homes have leakages that they never check. They never know. They never test every year, do I have a leakage or not? This is monitoring process where we have to be responsible and accountable for. If we really care about water and avoid the day zero for our own communities. So when we talk about social issues, going back to gender equality, in many parts of Africa, like it's a woman job to get water.
Yeah, in
And
India as well.
sometimes, oh, in India as well, there you go.
Yeah,
It takes 5 hours a
yeah,
day to get water, and it's a lot of waste of energy as well.
yeah,
The person in charge of going and getting water, it's not safe. Sometimes it's not safe water. It's just water.
yeah,
You still have to boil it at home and all this. So when women have to do this duty, that means they have no time to work or study.
yeah,
When we actually invest in infrastructure to pump that water and get water from the tap, now you have time in your hands to empower women to go to school and have innovative ideas and start working as well and being independent. So it is a gender equality issue as well, the lack to
yeah.
access to that,
You're
right?
absolutely right. Actually, in India, if you look at any picture of the village, I think the most common picture you'll see that describes a village is a lady in a sari carrying a what they call a matka, which is an earthen pot on her head and walking, because it is her job to go in the morning to go to the wherever the well is or the tube well, not necessarily in the same village. They walk a couple of miles, sometimes more than a couple of miles, and fill up the pot with the water and come back. So you're right, it is. That's true. I never thought of it that way.
The first time I saw that image was in the Jungle Book,
Ah, there you go. Jungle Book is basically
when Mowgli goes back to the village
yeah,
and the girl is getting right the
yeah,
water from the river and putting it here.
yeah,
That was something like that.
yeah. Jungle Book is in India. Yeah, exactly what it is. Yeah,
It's my favorite Disney movie, and actually, I have to read the book because I know the story of Disney's are always distorted. So I want to read the book because I know Disney's movies always have a tragic end that they never tell. So the things are not as beauty as they picture it. But anyway, that's another topic. So this is the importance of water. It has to do with gender equality. It has to do with sanitation and mortality rates. It has to do with violence. It has to do with peace. Basically, I don't want to be negative. It has to do with peace.
mm,
It's a deep matter that concerns every one of us because that's not only the thing. What happens when people do not have water anymore?
yeah.
Are
Ah,
they going to stay
it's gonna be crazy.
back?
It's gonna lead to the apocalypse basically because if you run out of if you run out of rubber, if you run out of oil, what's gonna happen? Machinery is gonna shut down, things of that nature. Here, you're just gonna die. So water is not something that we can. It's not a mineral that you've got from the earth. It is a basic necessity of life. You cannot not have.
Yes,
So it's gonna
but
lead.
here's the thing.
Yeah. What is it?
Here's the thing, though. People will not stay there to die. People are going to move. So these now we are facing the cause of massive migrations, exodus from people who cannot find water anymore, crossing borders, trying to reach out for life,
Yeah. Yeah.
for water, to eat, to sanitize themselves, to drink.
Yeah.
So this political issue that unfortunately, science is one thing, but then it becomes political.
Oh yeah.
So, for the sake of everyone, it's of our common interest that everyone has access to water. Because if not, they're going to come and take it from you.
Yeah, it's happening
And
already. It's a weapon now, water. Every time India and Pakistan, the tension rises, which is more often these days, India at least threatens to stop the flow of water from because the river that Pakistan uses for its water supply starts in India. So it's the Indus River, Indus Valley. So we say we're going to stop the water flow. And same thing with China, Pakistan. In the south, the city of Bangalore, the state that it is in, is always in a tiff with another state where Chennai is, because they share the same river for the water, and they're like protests on the street. Their states are always fighting for access for water because there's very little water left. It's so scary, actually.
Same thing in the Colorado River in USA.
Yeah.
You have plenty of examples everywhere in the world. So, we have to take this very seriously. It's our responsibility as well. So let me give you some solutions.
Yeah, let's get solutions. Yeah.
What can we do about this? Okay, yeah. You look, so closing the tap of the water tap. You're brushing your teeth and washing. Like if you're still doing that, please, like, I don't want to say bad words, but like, do us a favor and stop doing it right here, right now, because that's a baby step that it's a given. Like, we shouldn't even be having to deal with that, right? So it's just, if you're having a shower, you should last no more than 5 minutes with the tap open. You can stay 1 hour if you want in the shower. Just run more than 10 minutes.
I have a question. Do you think it is better to take a bath in a tub than to take a shower? Not from a point of view of hygiene, but from a point of view of water conservation. Absolutely. Okay, done.
It makes no sense. Baths, all that logic of having baths and all that was because we didn't have the technology we have today.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. And this is aspiring for luxury things, trying to have a jacuzzi in your house because that's from and I want to feel successful, or having I have a tub where like, to be honest, it's a disaster. You never use it. You use a lot of water when you use it, and then you have to clean it, which is a pain.
Yes,
so, which to clean you're going to use more water, and it does not make sense.
It's very unhygienic to take a bath in a tub. I think it's the most disgusting thing in the world.
I'm not it's just like it comes from the ignorance.
Yeah. So no tubs, no bathtubs. You're saying
no bathtubs.
No bathtubs.
All of those are already given. I'm not even going to mention them as part of the solutions. Let's talk about the real deal.
Yeah. Okay.
Number one thing that you can do the most to save water is stop wasting food.
Right. We just discovered.
Stop wasting food. You have to think smarter.
Yeah.
You have to see the water to understand that there's water involved in there.
Yeah.
So, number one, stop wasting food. Actually, 1/3 of the food produced in the world is wasted. So, please love ugly food, right? If the banana is a little bit brown, it's okay. You still can eat it. It's nutritious. So, don't waste it. And please stop going to restaurants and eating just half of the meal, or leaving 1/3 of the meal, or ask for a cake and have 2 ones and then feel a regret and say like, oh, I'm not going to eat it anymore. We have to be smarter than that, all right?
Yeah.
So do waste food. That's the number one. Number two, avoid eating meat. Literally, like, just at least beef. You can eat chicken if you want, you can eat fish if you want, but going vegetarian is heavily, how can I say this? We all thank you if you take that in your life.
I think vegetarian is, everywhere I go, the solution always is like going vegetarian. Just go vegetarian. It's always beneficial for some reason. I mean, Indian cuisine is mostly vegetarian. Meat is more of a novelty that they'll have. It's not a daily thing like in the West. But I mean, I eat meat, but I think I'm hearing more and more the solution to most problems is going vegetarian.
Look, it's not guilt-free, but it's way much better than just eating beef or the Western way, right?
Correct. Yes.
So all those who are still going for the steak and all that, do it once a year, but don't eat it every week or every day. It's just gonna kill us all, right? So this has to shift. The other one is, look, this is a very unpopular measure, but we don't value what we don't pay for. So far, water is free. What we pay for is the distribution of water.
That's true.
So don't be surprised that very soon they will start taxing water. All right. And that's another huge topic. Why? Because you don't care. We don't care. Like we still keep doing all these stupid things. So in order to internalize a cost that we have externalized to the environment and to avoid the collapse of our civilization in our local community, basically to not become a failed state, they will start taxing water. It will cost you now. Water has a value because otherwise we do not value it. Because we are not good at preventive things. We're just good at reacting. So when they put a tax, people are not going to like it because it's not only the tax on the direct water that you will consume that will be taxed. It's also every single thing that you buy will increase in price. And then you will be able to see the water footprint. You know?
You're right. Don't you think
So-
it would be a wise idea to put the water footprint behind every product? Like, you know how I just thought about this. How every time you eat something, there's a
Labels.
like they have the nutritional facts behind about how much protein is there, how much blah blah blah. Why don't they start putting water footprint at the end of it? People be a little more conscious about what they're having and not wasting.
Absolutely. But this is not beneficial for the producers, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because then everything is becoming more transparent, and when you realize that they are not actually, awareness does not change behavior, does not guarantee the change of behavior. Sometimes labels are good, but even, how many people are still smoking despite it is heavily proved that it is the second cause of death in the world?
I'm guilty.
Inside out, and people still buy cigarettes, right? Doesn't matter if they see whatever they see. It's just like awareness does not guarantee change of behavior. So people who will see a water footprint will say, so what? They're not linking, they didn't hear this podcast, right?
Yeah.
They didn't have this conversation before. Yeah. Sometimes it's not their fault. They're just not surrounded by the right people, right? So that's another thing that may happen. And obviously, I am pro-label. Transparency is very important. Even if people say, so what? I can afford it, so I'm going to buy it. Especially when, do you think people will stop drinking coffee because they can see that, every cup of coffee takes 150 liters of water? I don't think so.
Oh, man.
They're addicted to it. They don't understand that they're so... that's when you start realizing, I'm sorry to say about, these things, it may hurt the feelings of many people, but we need to learn quickly, immediately, to start self-loving ourselves.
Yeah.
We cannot continue, saying, oh, who cares? Well, if you don't care, it's because you don't care about yourself. That we treat our environment the way we feel about ourselves inside. An angry and a mad person will always be creating havocs out there because internally they're not at peace.
Yeah.
So the same thing with Coca-Cola, the same thing with coffee, the same thing with cigarettes, the same thing with alcohol. You have a problem to solve inside before you can actually be courageous enough to fight for yourself and say, this is not good for me. I'm going to stop doing it. You have to win that battle, internal battle inside, emotionally, in order to heal. And then say, this is not good for me, I'm going to reject it. It doesn't matter for how many years I was a slave or addicted to this, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that I can say is, yes, change your water fixtures, right? Change your shower head, change your toilets, change your taps, and just use all the regulations that are available in your country and the best technology you can find in your country. Now you can find toilets that use only 3 liters instead of 10 per flush. Three for number 1 and 5 liters for number 2.
I've got one.
Right?
Yeah, I've got those. Yeah.
And if you're really brave, you can even go for dry toilets. That's the logic and the design behind our human condition.
Yeah.
You don't see any other mammal using water to wash streets because poo was not supposed to be in contact with water. Poo is supposed to be in contact with soil.
Right.
So dry toilets, it would be the most logical thing to do. But we were taught and we grew up with this that for sanitization, we need to flush our shit away. And guess what? Shit is not going away, it's just coming back to us. So, very important. There's a very good movie, a documentary called Max CO2.
Okay.
Sorry, Max HO2, H2O, sorry, about talking about water.
What is it again? Say that again.
Max H2O.
Mix H2O.
That documentary shows you how all the dark, the gray and black water coming out of Mexico City is being sent to other cities around it. So this is something that they cannot stop because the regulation is already like that. So what these cities receiving literally all the shit diluted into water from this big city of Mexico City, 22 million people there. What they're doing is they're watering their fields with that water, like polluted totally from excretes. And all the produce from those fields, they send it back to Mexico City.
Ah. What goes on, basically.
Revenge, right? And people don't know. And they still do it. So, what goes around comes around, and we have to be more conscious about these things. Also, stop buying bottled water whenever you can. Yeah. We need to demand our rights. We need to become activists and say, water, it's non-negotiable. Yeah. We need fountains wherever we can. We need to start investing in infrastructure that allows us to have the capacity, empower women, stop having all these social issues, and most importantly, be at peace.
Yeah.
When a moment where we feel threatened because more people is coming and ask for our water, we must go on compassionate grounds because we never know when day zero will come to us.
That's right, man. Tell me how about desalinization plants? Do you think that might work? I don't even know if that is a solution, but to me, the answer to most of this accessibility to fresh water should be to be able to desalinize the oceans. Is that something we can do, or why is
absolutely
not? Yeah,
absolutely. That's something that we already do. That's actually how we said before that we would talk about it. So I apologize, I just got lost in
that's fine.
The whole. But yeah, countries like United Emirates, Arab Emirates,
Saudi Arabia, UAE.
Yeah, they all have to
exactly.
use the water they have available, and desalinization by using reverse osmosis methodology is very important. Yeah. The issue with this is that it's heavily energy intensive. That means intensive.
Okay.
So you need a lot of energy to pump the water through the membrane that stops the salts and other minerals to go through. And then you have to change those filters and put new ones. So the process has to stop and start again when you change the filters. It is possible, but it's very expensive. One, on water, two, because the energy you consume, and three, because you have to stop the process, change the filters, and do it again. For some reason, my friend, there are very, very clever people who have created different methodologies to desalinate water. And they have been shut down by governments and big corporations at no surprise, just like electric cars and so many other technologies already available from a long time ago. So, what can I tell you? That's another topic.
It's one big conspiracy. I get you now.
There's a guy who actually not only solved the issue of energy intensive requirements for desalination by using clean energy. He was able to pump water on the top of the mountain or just in a high spot and then let it go down by gravity. And instead of using energy,
create energy.
He was energy and desalinated water. And that will solve two problems in one shot, in one technology. Not a go.
And they didn't allow him to, they shut him down somehow. Man, you know what? Every time I listen to all these things, I come to realize I know, the thing is, most people who know me will say that I'm a conspiracy nut. I am a conspiracy nut. But that's because most things are a conspiracy. The solution to most things are actually available. It's just that the people who are, um, uh, I won't say in the know, but people who are in power, or people who stand to benefit from all of this crisis, make sure that the solution does not come out till it is convenient for them. For example, electronic cars. They were electronic cars, technology for electronic cars was established such a long time ago, but not until recently did we have electronic cars on the road. Why? Why is fossil fuel such an important? Like we spoke about it last time. Why is fossil fuel so important right now? You said most of the world is not even using fossil fuel anymore. It's just because people who
Yeah,
control it, it's in their benefit to do it, and we are all just pawns in this whole grand scheme, unfortunately. So, but
yeah,
we can try. We can get aware and beat them at their game by just taking measures ourselves, right? Like you said.
yeah. For me, it's I'm not pro conspiracy theories subjects. I am pro to understand that aggressive capitalism
Yeah,
has had us by the balls,
that's it.
and
Yeah,
we need to find a way where markets are not the solution to the problems of the world. We were not going to solve this problem by just selling more of something different.
correct.
Uh, we need to start caring for the people. We need to start caring for the planet. And again, caring for ourselves. And one way to do that is to stop putting in power all these idiots.
Yeah,
Like, I don't want to say names, but that country between Mexico and Canada, and you
yeah.
know,
That country in between Mexico, where they speak English. I'm not gonna say who they are, but they speak French and they speak German. I'm not gonna name the countries.
there's so many countries that we can label that have people that you wonder how did they actually got there. Like they will be fired from any company if they were, in a job. If they were CEOs of that company, they will kick them out immediately. They will
Exactly,
totally, killed alive if they were, in medieval times, if they were part of a kingdom.
for sure.
And and also, if they were at the school, they will just kicked out of the school for incompetence, so or misbehavior. So you know, this ignorance cannot keep being. We put them there. We allow them to happen. So we're
Yeah,
responsible. We're co-authors of our reality. So
exactly.
very important that people start actually voting for, like, don't vote for the person, vote for the agenda. Show me the plans. If in your plans you are not having, a low carbon economy, if you don't have a strategy for water access, for our country, if you're not into sustainability, don't vote them in. Don't vote them in.
Of
It's
course.
just as we have to give them what we want. They
I
need to
think I
understand.
think in the next decade, most important agenda in most elections is going to be climate change. It's not they're not talking about it in India yet because we still like to talk about religion and caste and other bullshit like that. But in most places which are developed, I think climate change would be the number one topic.
Absolutely.
I would like to vote for somebody who is conscious about that. And luckily, right now, I think at least Trump is gone, so I think Biden's stepping back in to the Paris Accord.
climate change climate change is just going to make worse all these
Yeah,
crises because specifically for countries like the Himalayas, depending of the water reservoirs on the sky, as I call it, these glaciers and mountains, every time having less snow, they depend of that snow to melt to have rivers that they
yeah,
can use the water. And at the beginning right now, it must be great. They have so much water, but that's because they are melting and they're not coming back. So at some point, again, day zero comes and they have to migrate. So climate change is definitely priority number one, just because it hits so many balls at the same time, right? It's like carambola.
yeah,
Um, we need to make sure that we are activists in our personal lives, politically, trying to demand climate action and all this. And finally, a very good advice for everyone hearing us today is that you must put in your house, if you don't have it already, a rainwater collector system
okay,
to collect the water and store it, and you treat it, because when the day comes when there's going to be hard times to access water, But well, the only thing that may give you hope is actually that it rains over your roof, like it is happening right now. And instead of sending that water to the streets to create floods, or just to, it's vital water coming from the sky over your head. But what do you do with it? You just pollute it and send it to the drainage. So if you're not doing that already, that technology is very cheap, it's available almost everywhere, and it's going to be a life-saving strategy and technology for you one day. Also, even if you're not in crisis right now in your city where you live, you should do it just to give more time for our underground water to be accessible for longer time. Reduce the pressure on our resources, on our reservoirs, but just capturing the water from the rain and filter it and use it, just like I did with my sustainable urban house. I can receive a house, I can store up to 8,000 liters, and I can resist up to 12 days, maybe 15 days, without changing my habits.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Can I do that in my apartment? So, is it an apartment or is it in a house?
It's a house. Okay. Four-bedroom house, 3 showers, or full bathrooms.
I have a flat. So I think I need less. I need less water in a flat. So I think she'll be able to do it. I think I'll look up to it. That is a good idea, my friend. Rainwater. I've learned about rainwater harvesting in school. I can remember that definitely.
Yeah. Think about this. I heard this from someone else, and I think I really liked it. Think about this. Every drop matters, just like every blood drop matters in your system.
Oh, yeah. That's a good thought.
Right? Like, how many drops from your blood are you willing to lose? Just like that. Just throw it away.
That's a good thought. That's a great thought to end this too on. Remember, we gotta equate water to blood, basically. It is. It's not basically your blood is water, actually. We just talked about that. So water is blood. So yeah, man. Another really, really informative and scary episode, Jorge.
Let's not be afraid. We can avoid that, and that's the main message. We can avoid it, but someone has to shake you up.
Nate, you gotta get scared before you start acting. You gotta get scared before you start acting. So
stop pretending that everything is gonna be fine, and just this is an emergency. We must react. Civilized. Don't go out running like, oh, this is the wall. It's gonna go. It's gonna run out. No. But really, we gotta be responsible of ourselves, and that starts, as you said, with being alarmed. I want you to be alarmed, because if you're not gonna take action as quick as possible. So I'll show that you're a smart human being. Use your gray matter up here, your brain, and go and find solutions available to you in your city, wherever you are, because this is the best thing you can do with your time and your money. Just come together as humans and help solve these global issues by being responsible of yourself.
Perfect. Wise words to end this one on, man. Thanks so much for stepping in again and sharing your time with us. I know you're a very busy person. He's on TEDx. Did you know he's also in a movie which went to Cannes? We're going to talk about all that next time, because there's a lot more to Jorge than just his climate activism. We're going to talk about, he's a very, very prolific dancer. You can see the Mexican cap in the back. He's a professional dancer, actually. That's when I met him, he was a professional dancer. He wasn't a climate change activist at the point in time. So next time we're going to do a podcast where it's going to be about dance and art, all those other fun things. But like I said, man, thanks so much. Thanks for sharing your time, especially on a Sunday. And let's do this again soon.
Thanks for the invite, Raul.
All right, buddy. Peace out. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. I'm glad. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Adios, amigos.